Hello guys, welcome to the episode 2 of Radio of Reason. Today we have Kojo with us, so thank you for joining us today, Kojo.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. Alright, the first question I had for you was kind of just like a brief introduction, like what got you started with like philosophy and were you always like interested in it?
No, so I definitely wasn't always interested in philosophy.
Hmm.
Um, I used to actually debate like very kind of broadly like social topics. So I used to debate about like whether or not racism is moral or immoral, whether or
Yeah.
not there are like gender inequalities, if trans women are women or not, like those kinds of topics, right? Um, and I was kind of like having a debate one day, and then somebody kind of stumbled into the live that I was in,
Hmm.
and this guy knew like a whole lot about philosophy. So then he challenged me, and he basically used like all of these terms and words that I just had no idea of.
Yeah.
And it made me like, it basically challenged me. It prompted me to kind of tap into a world that I hadn't even known existed, right? Because prior to that, I mean, I knew about philosophy, I'd heard about it, but I didn't really know anything about it.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what prompted me to get into philosophy. And then
Yeah.
from then, I just didn't stop reading. I just kept reading as much as I can, trying to find and ask questions and kind of put myself in certain places so I can have access to the right kind of information. So, yeah, that's my story.
Yeah, that's actually quite funny because I think you done that to me, to be honest, because I used to like debate on topics like veganism and like slightly abortion as well, and then I stumbled into your live. Like obviously I've never debated you, but I stumbled into your live, and then you were like using all these terms I've never heard before as well, and then I literally just didn't want to debate ever like until I knew like everything that you were saying because like I didn't see a point in it if I didn't know like all these terms. So yeah.
Yeah,
uh,
that's actually that's hilarious that that happened to you as well. But um, I mean, the thing that I've noticed is that a lot of there's kind of like two people in the world.
mhm,
So there's the first group of people where when they're confronted with information that they might not just be aware of, or like a specialized language that's kind of like out of their scope of understanding.
mhm,
There's on the one hand, you have one group of people where they're just immediately intimidated
yeah,
and they instantly start kind of turning on like their defense mechanisms, like,
mhm,
oh, you're just using these big words because you just want to sound smart,
yeah,
right? Like you're not actually trying to be productive. And then there's the other group of people who kind of like take those kinds of experiences as motivation to better themselves in terms of like just how much they know, what
mhm,
they know about, and kind of like just a field of topics that are available at their disposal and how much they kind of tap into that.
100%.
Um, I think like you're one of the people that fell into the latter camp, and
Yeah.
you probably want to be in the latter camp. So yeah, I'm glad that I was able to help you out in that way.
Yeah, you've changed like my perspective on so many things. So yeah, I thank you for that. The second question I had was like, do you ever debate outside of like social media, like maybe or not really debate, like have a discussion as well, like with friends or family about, like philosophy at all?
Yeah, sometimes. Most of my debating is online though, but
Yeah.
I have occasionally in real life had like kind of like very minuscule, nothing too deep, like you'll find me on TikTok doing,
Yeah.
but just kind of like very brief, surface level, kind of minuscule back and forth discussions, I guess you could say, with some of my friends.
Hmm.
Um, and it's mostly like it's kind of like them just kind of at like it's just kind of like us bouncing ideas back and forth off of each other.
Yeah.
Um, it'll usually start out with like me explaining like what some view is in philosophy,
Hmm.
and then my friends and I will just kind of like chat back and forth, like, oh well, if that's the case, then what does it mean for this? And kind of like go into this infinite regress of asking why, and all these new questions that kind of pop up, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a fun little exercise with my real life friends. Kind of gives us something to do,
Yeah.
like that actually like stimulates our brain, and we're not just like rotting away. So I do have those things occasionally, but yeah, like I said previously, majority of my debates concerning philosophy is online.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah. Um, what's like more important to you when you're debating someone? Is it like winning overall, or is it kind of like helping people to like think differently, or does this like change due to the opponent you're debating? Do you think?
Um, yeah, I think it's probably heavily context dependent.
Yeah.
It's really going to depend on the person that I'm talking to. So, I mean, you know this. Maybe your audience
Hmm.
is not exactly aware of this, but um, you never know what you'll get on TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're hosting a live.
Hmm.
You could have somebody that comes up and they're, just very open, willing to have a conversation. They don't interrupt too much and they don't do any name calling.
Yeah.
Like those people are very pleasant to speak to. Like those people, I'm actually interested in kind of exploring ways that we can maybe shift their intuitions or shift their view about the world.
Yeah.
And then you have like this other group of people where, like they're just kind of like this pompous attitude and they're like overly confident, even though what they know, like just knowledge wise, isn't anywhere near on par with their confidence level.
Yeah.
And like those kind of people, I'm just not interested in convincing, nor am I interested in winning. I'm mostly just interested in kind of like exposing them being stupid, like their own idiocy.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's like other groups of people where they're just kind of like inquisitive, right? So they don't really have any views, but they just kind of want to ask questions to see like where they stand. Those
Hmm.
people I'm very interested in talking to because um, they're like much more receptive and willing to intake the information that I'm basically delivering to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess the answer to your question is it's just largely context dependent.
Yeah. I think I would agree with that too. Yeah, definitely. Um, my next question was like, when was the last time you've changed a view of yours? Because I feel like you're in that position now where you've kind of like, you know a lot obviously about philosophy and you're quite like strict on what you know and you kind of have found what you believe in. So when was the last time you kind of changed a view?
Good question. So I actually just recently changed a view that I had.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. So I used to have this view. Um, it was a, how do I explain this without kind of like using too much mumbo jumbo like Phil jargon? I'll try to explain this as best as I
Okay.
can, but
Yeah, sure.
there's basically a view so that you like I kind of believe in this thing called essences.
Okay.
Um, and there's like two ways to understand what an essence is and like what it means to say that you believe in essences, right?
Hmm.
So like the first way is this kind of like deflated way where essences are not going to be like when I say metaphysically extramental entities, here's what I know it's like a lot of words, but here's what
Yeah,
that
yeah.
means. It just means like something that actually exists out there, right? Like an actual
Yeah, so this
being.
would this just mean that it's
Mhm.
not metaphysically redundant or
Yeah, so well, if it's deflationary, then it would be metaphysically redundant. Yes.
okay, it would.
Right. So, yeah, as opposed to it being like metaphysically extravagant, right?
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, that's one way to kind of understand like what an essence is in this kind of like robust way where you're actually saying that essences are like real entities that exist out there in the world.
Hmm.
Those are more like robust understandings of like what an essence is.
Okay.
And then or excuse me, those are more like robust. And then you have like the other kinds of views where essences are not actually this kind of like real thing that exists out there, but it is something that exists in the actual world, like the world that we live in now.
Yeah.
But the way that it exists doesn't depend on like our attitudes about it, right? Or like how we feel or what we think about the matter, basically, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I used to take on like the kind of like weighty reading, like the weighty view,
Yeah.
where it was like an actual thing out there in the world. And recently I shifted and now I'm a deflationist about essences. So basically, I think, whenever we like invoke talk about essences, we're not referring to any like real entity out there in the world, but rather we're referring to like objective categories in the actual world. Does
But
that make sense?
when you say essences, what do you actually mean by that? Like, just so I, does this just mean
Yeah.
like
So
truth or like what does it mean?
no, not exact. I mean, you could say true things about things with essences. So I mean, you can do that.
Hmm.
But when I say an essence, I'm kind of talking about the aseity of something. So what that means is like it's kind of the defining properties about something, right? It's kind of like what
Okay.
makes a thing what it is, right? So
Yeah.
like for example, if I were to say um triangle's essence is that it's a three-sided object that equals 180 degrees,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That would mean that in order for something to be a triangle, it would have to satisfy
Mm-hmm.
those necessary defining properties. And so those necessary defining properties are basically what it means to say that it has an essence. It has like a defining property or a set of defining properties that makes it that thing rather than something else.
And then you would take a deflationist view on essences, you said.
Correct.
And then what? How? If you had to put it in the context for the triangle, like how would that? Could you explain it to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the triangle example, like saying that there is this real defining property about triangles that makes them, triangles as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to something else,
Yep.
saying that doesn't necessarily, if you're a deflationist, doesn't necessarily commit you to the view that the fact that a triangle has an essence is like a real metaphysical fact out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't commit you to that at all. Rather, it just commits you that there's like um, there's a true proposition that you can say about essences, and whatever makes the proposition true doesn't depend on your specific attitudes about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, are you familiar with the distinction in metaethics between, for example, relaxed realism and robust moral realism?
I don't know. Wait, did my hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I wouldn't know the difference. Could you explain it?
Yeah, yes. And the reason why this is relevant is because it's kind of like a similar idea here.
Mm-hmm.
So, relaxed realists believe that, well, at least one example of relaxed realists believe that there are still like objective moral truths, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like those things, there's still objective moral truths,
Yeah.
but there's no like like moral facts are not like, these real entities out there in the world, right? There's not like some real thing out there in the world that exists that is goodness, but the fact that X is good is like an objectively true fact. Does that make sense?
um, I guess. Yeah.
Right. So carrying that same context,
Mm-hmm.
the same is being said about essences, is that when you say it is true that X has such essence, right?
Mm-hmm.
The truth maker, so the truth maker is just going to be whatever makes the proposition true. Whatever makes the proposition true is independent of what we believe, what we desire, what we care about. It's independent of all of those things.
Yep.
But you're not necessarily saying that the essences exist out there in the world as like this kind of like real thing out there in the metaphysical realm or something, right? So that's basically what the view is.
Okay, I think I understand. Wait, so it's something that makes the proposition true, but it's not basically in like reality out there, right?
It's not something that, so the thing that makes the proposition true,
Yeah.
it doesn't depend on anybody's like
Yeah,
stances
opinions.
about it or
Yeah.
attitudes. Yeah, it doesn't depend on their opinion. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah, I didn't know I didn't know the difference between those two. So thank you for explaining that.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
the next question I had was: are there topics that you like refuse to debate, and then like why?
Hmm. That's a good one. Let me think about that.
Yeah.
Um. Hmm. I largely try to stay away from like semantic disputes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think they're just very annoying and like extremely counterproductive.
Yeah.
Um, just because of like the way I think language is, right? Like I mean, I don't really find it particularly productive. Like let's say you and I are having a debate
Mm-hmm.
and I'm giving you an argument, and
Yeah.
let's say I've kind of given you the meanings of the terms that I'm employing in the argument,
Mm-hmm.
and then you were to come along and say, okay, well, I know that's how you're using the term, but according to my usage of the
Yeah.
term, what you're saying would be false. Well, I mean, that's not really attacking my view, right? You're just
No.
kind of like saying that you're just using a different term.
Yeah.
So like those kinds of disputes, I just find I'm not even sure if it is a dispute. It sounds to me like it's more like just kind of talking about your opinion, right? In
Yeah.
the same way that like two people debating over whether or not chocolate ice cream is better than vanilla ice cream isn't
Yes.
like
Oh my
actually a
god.
real,
I hate
yeah, it's
stuff
not
like
like a
that.
real
Genuinely.
dispute, right? There's not like some real fact about the matter. It's just like people just kind of talking about their opinions, really, right?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that
Um,
because so many people just
yeah,
love to debate on like just pointless things like music taste and stuff like this, like some objective like standard of music taste that everyone should be like abiding by. It just makes zero sense.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there are serious philosophers who will argue for views like aesthetic realism, So like
Mm.
there is a serious dispute in philosophy over whether or not like facts about beauty or facts about likability, whether or not something is likable or desirable, whether or not like those facts are objective. So there are serious philosophers that debate about that. But
I did
I
not
mean,
know
yeah, I
that.
mean, oh yeah, yeah, there is. There's like it's actually largely talked about in like philosophy of perception and stuff like that.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, so largely I try to kind of like steer and veer away from those kinds of debates, the kind of like semantic disputes. So yeah, I mean, if the argument, so I guess yeah, to answer your question, like if there was one kind of debate, I guess your question was like a topic, right? I guess you.
Yeah,
So I
just
don't know
like
if I really answered your question, but
no, yeah, no, I completely understand. It definitely fulfills what
I
I've
guess I'll
asked.
say yeah, any topic that just kind of resolves to a semantic dispute is broadly what I would avoid.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. What would be your favorite thing to debate about within philosophy? Is it
Ooh,
abortion?
um, I love talking about metaphysics. I think metaphysics is so
Metaphysics?
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, fair
yeah.
enough.
Yeah, I think yeah, metaphysics is like super out of like all the philosophy that I've read, I think metaphysics is the one that I genuinely like enjoy reading about. Like just kind of
Yeah,
like all the different views out there. And because though I mean, metaphysics is like it's basically us attempting to describe like the most fundamental aspects about reality, right? Like
yeah,
the most like basic components about our very existence. I find those questions to be like very, very appealing. I kind of
hmm
want to know like what, like the answers to some of those questions, like who has it right, who has it wrong, like
yeah,
are the global skeptics correct or are the realists correct about the matter? Are the anti-realists correct? I think all those things are very, very interesting. So that's probably my favorite topic to talk about on philosophy is metaphysics.
nice. Okay. This next question kind of links into that. Like, do you study a lot of philosophy in your own time? Like, do you like to try like read a lot about it?
So funny enough, actually, I'll tell you the story. Not many people know the story about me, but I'll tell
Mm.
you this for your podcast.
Yep.
I actually used to hate reading. I despised reading, right?
Oh, really?
Um, yes, actually, like you couldn't even pay me to read when I was younger. Um, and then growing up, I kind of watched my dad, and my dad was a very busy man, right? Like he was working multiple jobs growing up. He doesn't do that now because he set himself up in a very good position.
hmm
But back then, he kind of had like several jobs, on top of the fact that he was taking care of a whole other family across the world.
Yeah.
But despite all of that, I always watched him put time aside to read his Bible.
hmm
Um, and that kind of like motivated me. Like, okay, well, I'm nowhere near as busy as this guy, and he finds time to read. So if he's finding time to read, that means I can definitely find time to read.
Yeah.
So then I forced myself to like reading, and then I actually ended up loving it. I enjoyed it, and I just kept reading. So, I mean, to answer your question, yeah, I mean, still to this day, no matter how busy I am or what I'm doing, I always make sure to set aside some time to basically like read and study something. It
Oh,
doesn't matter what it is.
that's really great.
Yep.
Um, this next question is probably quite hard to actually answer, but I said like, do you think we have like a purpose in life, and if so, like, what is it? But I think it's quite like subjective. So like, do you think you have a purpose, and do you think you've found yours?
Um, well, to answer your question, yes, I think we do have a
Oh, okay.
purpose. I think our purpose is happiness. That's what I think,
hmm
right? So I think like when I look at when I kind of like scope around the world, right?
hmm
And I look at like all these different humans and I'm looking at the things that they do and I'm looking at like why they're doing the things they do. It seems like and like you can kind of like provide a bunch of explanations for why people do the things they do.
hmm
But I think ultimately every explanation is going to boil down to something to do with happiness.
Yeah.
Even if the way that they got there is wrong, right? Maybe somebody thinks what makes them happy is decapacitating human beings, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what brings them happiness. But that would just be an instance where they're just mistaken about the true path to happiness, right? It's not actually the case that they're seeking happiness. Maybe they're just seeking something that makes them happy, not what is objectively
Yes.
what it like objectively means for them to be in a state of happiness, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's what like our purpose is.
Mhm.
Um, and I think, I mean, have I achieved that? I'd like to, I'd like to think that I have a long way to go.
Yeah. I think it's like you kind of have to look at it like holistically, like at the end of your life to kind of see if you achieved it, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I think that's probably, and I mean, this is actually interesting that you bring this up because this was part of the debate when, um, what's they're called like eudaimonic
yes.
ethicists,
Hmm.
when they were kind of like engineering this concept of happiness and what it is. There was a dispute over whether or not like human beings can actually achieve happiness at all, right? Like, or whether or not
Yeah.
like happiness is even something that's achievable in this lifetime. Is it something that is only available to us once we're in heaven, if there is a
Hmm.
heaven that exists, right? So there's like all these kind of further questions that you can ask. But I mean, to me, I think we can achieve happiness.
Yep.
I just don't think we can achieve all of what is happiness. I think we can like tap into like, a very small, like, I don't know if there's like an exact percentage, but I think we can tap into some of whatever it is that happiness is.
Yep.
um and I think that's like good enough for us, right? I think that's like all we need.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, just following on from that, I didn't actually write it down, but it's now kind of popped into my memory. Um, Within like psychological egoism, where it says like it's just like a factual claim that we just do everything out of self-interest, would you agree to that? Do you think every action that
No,
we do? No.
nope, no, I don't agree with that, because I think because of the fact that I believe in altruism.
Oh,
So I think
really?
there are like genuinely, yeah, absolutely. I think there are like genuinely altruistic acts. Like, I think somebody could act without their primary intention being their own self gratification, right? Like, for example, if there's a burning building
Hmm.
and a random dad jumps in there to save a kid who isn't even his,
Yep.
that was an altruistic act, right? It's not clear to me what benefit he's getting by throwing himself in a burning building, potentially risking his own life to save somebody that has no relation to him at all whatsoever,
What
right?
would you say to like
Um,
someone saying like he wouldn't be able to live with himself like due to the guilt, so he did it for himself in that way?
then I think that would just be question begging, right? I
Yeah.
think you would just be assuming your own view when you say that. Like, I don't actually like why would that be the explanation as opposed to him just doing that because he just genuinely thought it would be a good thing to save the child's life, right?
Mm.
I think like the latter explanation is like way more likely than the prior explanation,
Hmm.
because I can imagine a case where even if he could have just been indifferent, right? Like maybe he just didn't care about the child dying in the burning building or whatever.
Yeah,
But yet something still prompted him to like jump in the building and save the child's life. Like that's possible,
that's
right?
true.
Um, so yeah, I mean that's what I would probably say to that.
Yeah, fair enough. My next three questions are kind of like opinions and thoughts on certain topics. So my first one would be like your opinions on veganism and vegan ethics.
That's a good question. So I think there's kind of largely a dispute in philosophy of ethics about whether or not animals are things that have moral consideration.
Yep.
Is it something that is it the case that we're justified in applying, right, or
Hmm.
assigning the property of wrongness or rightness or goodness or badness? Is it the case that we're justified in assigning these properties to non-human animals? And
Yep.
when I look at it, basically, the reason why I'm convinced of veganism is really because of just one simple ethical principle, which is basically that we shouldn't cause harm beyond necessity. I can't find anything anywhere that's going to actually prove that false. It seems like in every instance, universally,
Hmm.
where you're multiplying harm beyond necessity, you're almost always, if not every single time, doing something wrong,
Yep.
right? So I look at that principle and then I apply that in the case of veganism. And I say, okay, well, it seems like we are kind of multiplying harm beyond necessity when we factory farm these animals and we are,
Hmm.
excuse my language, but like we're literally like raping them and
Yep.
harvesting their bodies and flesh and like
Hmm.
all this kind of like nasty stuff, right? Which doesn't seem necessary at all,
No.
especially considering that we don't even need their meat to survive anyways,
Exactly.
right? So then it's like, So that's what I'm like thinking in my head when I say that I agree with veganism.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree to that too. Um, my next one would be your opinions on like euthanasia, or maybe just like
Ooh.
pulling the plug off brain dead patients as well.
Okay. This one is one that I've kind of been wrestling with. I don't know if I'd say I have any like strong views on this specifically,
Yeah.
but I would say what I can tell you though is that I think there are some cases where euthanasia is definitely wrong. Like it's clear to me that it's wrong.
Hmm.
Um, if you ask me to pull out a case, I probably don't have that. Like I have to like think about it and kind of like think about all the factors about the case. But
Yeah.
I know there's at least one case where euthanasia is wrong. Um, I also think that with the pulling the plug on brain dead patients thing, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong happening there because there's just no person. There's no you can't assign wrongness to something that isn't even able to be a recipient of wrongness, right? Because
Hmm.
at that point, not only have they lost their personhood, but they've lost their animality,
Yeah.
right? So the fact that they're actually like an animated, living being.
Yeah.
In which case, yeah, I mean, like, I don't think you can really even do anything wrong to that.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Um, what would be your thoughts on? It's kind of two separate things, but they kind of can interlink. Homosexuality and like contraception. This could be like artificial or natural. Like it doesn't really matter.
Um, I think contraception is generally fine as long as the contraception, obviously, me being pro life, I obviously think that the abortion is wrong from the moment of conception.
Yeah.
So, as long as the contraceptive isn't like killing an already fertilized zygote
Yeah.
or an already fertilized egg, I really don't care. In fact, I actually encourage people to use contraceptives. I think like not enough people are using contraceptives.
Hmm.
Pretty sure I read somewhere like over 60% of adults who are sexually active just don't use protection.
Mm, Jesus.
I get it, like raw is
Yeah.
like better, but you have to strap up, bro. You got to strap up, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about that. And what was your other question? Sorry, you got to
Like
remind me.
homosexuality.
Oh, right. Um, so with homosexuality, I think it's so. Here's what I think.
Hmm.
Obviously, me being a Christian, I think God specifically commands against the acts of homosexuality.
Yeah.
And if it's the case that God is all knowing, he's all good, and he's all powerful, and if he's relaying this information, then it's more than likely that he's relaying accurate information. So I'm basically epistemically bound to say that if you were to engage in homosexual acts, you would be doing something against God's word, which
Yeah.
would by definition be immoral.
Hmm.
But I think there's like a psychological aspect to it where there's like these kind of internal desires that they have that aren't really in their control. So I don't think it's wrong for you to desire, right,
Yeah.
sexual relations with like another man.
Yeah.
I think that's fine to have the kind of attraction because that kind of stuff is like really out of your control.
Yeah.
But I think acting on it, that's that's probably where I say like, yeah, it's immoral.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So wait, just quickly on kind of the contraception thing. Would you? So you wouldn't say that um, whenever like you're engaging in sexual intercourse, if it's not for the purpose of like um, what's the word? Like procreation, like um, this would be like fine. Like so like
Um,
engaging in sexual sorry it's like so early in the morning. Wait
no, you're good.
what was I gonna say? So basically, you think like people can engage in sexual intercourse even if it's for like not making um a baby.
Yeah, well, that's just because of what I think a purpose is, right? So I don't think a purpose is going to be determined by us. I think we discover purposes in things.
Okay.
So, and purpose is the way that I think about purposes is just a reason for something's existence, right? It's going to be
Hmm.
like the thing that explains the fact that something exists.
Okay.
So, for example, a hammer, the thing that explains the fact that a hammer exists is that it's supposed to punch nails in a board or something, right?
Yeah.
Um, you can have like different types of explanations for things that exist, but the primary cause, right, the thing that it primarily exists for, I think it's going to be determined by a certain set of like what's called like teleological facts.
Hmm.
So it's going to be determined by like its telos.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, of course, but I believe in, I believe in things like final causes. So I think like, things like actually inherently have like a directional movement towards things. So yeah, I mean, you can act in ways that is contrary to that, so long as you're not significantly frustrating that developmental trajectory or that directedness, that goal directedness, right? So like for example, I could say, the primary function of a hammer is to, hit nails on a chalkboard, right?
Hmm.
I could also use a hammer to do something else, right? I could use a hammer to remove nails, right?
Yes.
I could also use a hammer to I don't know, smash a TV, right?
Hmm.
But if I took the hammer and I bashed somebody's head in, I would be doing something that it's like significantly deterring from what the primary function of the hammer was, right? Like that
Yeah.
just was not the intention of the builder when they
S-
made the hammer,
So
right?
yeah.
So
So
like,
sorry.
yeah.
Would the primary function of like like a male and a female not be to like procreate though, like in the sexual intercourse? So would they not be like kind of frustrating that? Do you think or not?
I think the primary function of sex is to procreate. I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely true. And I think you can do things that like probably kind of deviate away from that, right? Like you can, for example, if you're using like toys or something, like that's
Hmm.
kind of like frustrating the function, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's like you're doing something bad necessarily, right? I don't think you're doing something like wrong. Like I wouldn't like call you like morally wrong for playing with a toy or something, right?
Hmm.
Maybe there's an argument to be made that it's like I know there's people that make arguments that it's like it's not virtuous, and so according to that moral system, you would be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't really even necessarily believe in that, so I don't think you'd be doing something wrong. But if you were to like significantly frustrate the sexual function, then I think you'd be so there's like a threshold that you have to basically cross. Does that make sense? So
What would be an
um,
example of that, just so I like understand?
like rape. So like
Oh,
rape is a
okay.
significant
Yeah. Yeah.
distortion of sexual function, right? Like
Yeah.
the primary intention of the act of sex is for reproduction.
Hmm.
And but when a rapist, takes advantage of a woman, he's basically like disrupting her reproductive function. Like
Yeah.
and especially against her consent, which makes it even more wrong, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that would be an example of like a significant frustration. So it really depends on how severe you're veering away from the primary reason for the action.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, my next question was on free will. Like, I've never heard your opinions about free will before. Do you think we have it, or do you take like more of like a deterministic view?
So I'm largely sympathetic to a compatibilist thesis.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think libertarian free will exists. I don't think that exists.
Hmm.
I'm not even sure. I don't even know what it would mean to say that like libertarian free will exists.
Hmm.
But I also think determinism is false. I don't think that every single thing that we do is going to have like some prior causal explanation or something, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I kind of like find myself in the middle where I think there's a compatibility between some events being deterministic, yet some events are purely just through our own choices, right?
Yeah.
So like for example, like um, it could be the case that there are determined facts about the fact that the sun will rise tomorrow, right? When I wake up.
Hmm.
But I can still choose to get out of bed or not, right? Like that's
Yeah.
my choice. There's nothing like forcing me to get out of bed. There might be like outside pressures and like things that might influence me or motivate me to get up.
Yeah.
But those things aren't like binding me to get up, right? It's like I could choose not to if I wanted to, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like how I think about it.
Yeah. I actually would say I'm actually on path of view with that actually right now. Like, I used to take like a deterministic view on free will for like a while, but I'd say like currently I would have said compatibilist view like probably explains it a little bit better, and you just explained it perfectly. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um
yeah. Most philosophers are compatibilists.
yeah. My next question was like, what are your opinions on Dean and Parker, as you've like debated them both? I was just like wondering what you think about them both.
Um, okay, so there's really a few responses that I could give here, but I'll go with the most charitable response, right?
Mhm.
So I think Dean and Parker are strong political speakers. I think they know how to speak and they know how to engage an audience,
Yeah.
which is a skill that not everybody has, right? There's like a lot of people where they don't know how to engage an audience, especially when you have large audiences, like you have 5 to 10,000
Hmm.
people watching you, at a time.
Yeah.
Being on camera, every single movement that you make is always being watched. Every single word that you say, every single stutter, every single mistake, it's all being put on broad display.
Yeah.
Some people just can't handle that. So the fact that Dean and Parker are able to handle that is a plus for them, right? It's
Yeah.
like actually like it's an admirable trait to have. Now, with that being said, do I think that they're good reasoners? No, I don't think they're good reasoners.
Mm.
I think they make very kind of basic reasoning mistakes a lot of the times. It's very common for them to kind of like blunder in the
Yeah.
sense where they're mistaken about something that they're reasoning about.
Hmm.
So in the reasoning sense, I think there's like a lot of work to do. I think they have potential. Like I think Dean, if he really wanted to, could be somebody philosophically competent and then in turn making him a much better reasoner.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's kind of like interested in that. I think what he's only interested in is
The
kind of
political.
like wherever the yeah, like wherever like the political scene kind of takes him. He's just kind of like
Yeah.
flying with the wind is what it appears like to me.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Um so yeah, that's what I think about them.
Yeah, that's
Same
fair
thing with
enough.
Parker's.
Yeah. Um, do you know who Alex O'Connor is?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
What do you like? I'd love to you two to have like a debate one time, but like he's a non-cognitivist. I think he's an emotivist. What do you say about like non-cognitivist views?
Um, yeah, so I think non-cognitivism
Hmm.
is kind of a silly view to me. And the reason why I say that is because it appears, firstly, it appears very apparent to me that when people are kind of, you know, deliberating or they're kind of talking about moral stuff
Yep.
in the domain of discourse, it seems very apparent to me that they're not just merely kind of disagreeing about like an opinion. Like I think they're actually disagreeing about something that they believe to be true, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. It's just that I'm just like it just seems to be that way, right? So I could be justified in some sense about my seemings, right?
Hmm.
Um, like for example, when I see a pro-choice and pro-life debate, and a woman comes up and says, um, she should be able to get an abortion because it's her body, for
Hmm.
example. I don't think she's just saying, well, I think it's my opinion that she should be able to get an abortion because, in my opinion, she has bodily autonomy. No, I think she's saying, well, it's like literally true. It's like actually true
Yeah.
that the woman has bodily autonomy. It's actually true that she should have rights. And these are like actually true things about the world. It's not just like merely my opinion. This is the way the world actually should be, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's the first thing. The second thing is I just think there's like obviously more technical issues with non-cognitivism,
Hmm.
really dependent on the kind of non-cognitivist you are. Obviously, the most basic one, just against the most basic forms of non-cognitivism, is obviously Frege-Geach problem, which is just a problem about explaining logical inferences in normative propositions that are complex, right? So that's kind of like it's like a bunch of fancy terms, but I'll just give you an example,
Yeah.
right? So just take the following argument. If I were to say, if it's the case that it's wrong for, um, I don't know, Santa Claus to grape babies, then he shouldn't grape babies. It is the case that it's wrong for Santa Claus to grape babies. Therefore, he shouldn't be able to grape babies.
Hmm.
Um, like non-cognitivists cannot actually explain the fact that that argument is valid, like just logically speaking. They can't account for the inference in that argument. So that's like a more
Oh.
specific, very technical issue with the view. And then of course
Hmm.
there's like an empirical dispute. So there's like a dispute over the psychological studies that have been conducted over like about people and like these kind of like groups of people and just observations about what people tend to mean when they're kind of talking about morality. And it
Yeah.
seems like all of the psychological studies are suggesting that people seem to be expressing like beliefs, which beliefs are about true things. That's like what a belief is. It's supposed to
Yeah.
represent something about the world, which is either going to be true or false. So I mean, yeah, that's trivially going to entail that non-cognitivism is not the case.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And don't like surely if you're taking like a non-cognitivist view, like let's say emotivism for example, yeah, and like you believe you're just expression like emotions on like moral dilemmas, surely you've got to be okay with like other people saying like it's fine to like murder them. You know what I mean? Because there's no
Right.
like
I
because
mean,
obviously there's no
yeah.
like objective like morality. So surely you got to
Right.
be fine
I
with
mean,
that.
they would have to say that their opinion is just as valid as the
It's
next
theirs.
person's
Yeah,
opinion.
exactly.
Um, right. So I mean, yeah, that's what you're talking about is like the argument for moral disagreement, right?
Mhm.
Just considering the fact that people disagree substantively, right? In the sense where there's like an actual dispute over the truth about the matter, not just merely opinions.
Yeah.
Seems to be evidence that they're not actually talking about opinions at all. That they're actually talking about some. It seems like when one person says rape is wrong, the other person says rape is good.
Mhm.
It seems like both of them are aiming at something that's true, right? Like some
Yes.
true facts about the world. Not that they're just merely like kind of giving their opinions about the world. It seems like both of them are like aiming at something that's true about the world, and one person is going to be correct and the other person is going to be wrong, right?
Yeah.
And I think that view is way more intuitive to me than the view that they're just merely, you know, kind of like doing these like emotional utterances, like "oh, boo, rape." Like, I don't think I don't think that's what's happening. I
Yeah.
think when people say rape is wrong, I think they mean like, oh, it's like literally a fact about the world that you shouldn't rape people, right?
No. Yeah. I actually totally agree with that. Yeah. We get into the fun stuff now. This is where I'm gonna get like really confused probably, but I'll try my best. So would you be able to just go through your like normative ethical framework and then meta ethical view?
Sure. So I'll try to not blow your ears off with the philosophical jargon.
I'll try my best.
Just
I
stop
know
me at any.
briefly about things, so I'll try my best.
Yeah. So I kind of have my view is not very conventional, but it's a very specific synthesis of two different views.
Okay.
So the first view is obviously just eudaimonism, which is the view about, so I mean, the idea is supposed to be that like morality is about this thing called happiness, right? I
Hmm.
kind of like we kind of like hinted at it earlier in
Yeah.
the conversation, but yeah, it's just the idea that like morality and all of our moral actions are all aiming towards this one final ultimate goal,
Hmm.
which is happiness, right? So I take a combination of that view and a view called satisfactionism, which
Yes.
satisfactionism, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, so satisfactionism is basically the view that there's going to be like certain things that objects have where the object. So, okay, think about it like this: like, if I have a glass of water, right, or if I let's say I have an empty glass, right,
Yeah.
and I filled the glass with water, right.
Hmm.
If I were to say it is true that the glass is filled with water, that is true if and only if um the like the way the world is actually satisfies that proposition being true. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So it has to be the case that in order for the proposition to be true, that there is actually a cup that's full of water.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would not be a true sentence. It would be a false sentence. It would be false for you to say that, right?
Hmm.
So there's going to be like this kind of like satisfaction relation between you saying something true about the thing and the thing actually being the case, right? Um,
Okay.
so that's what satisfactionism is, and basically I combined the two. So my normative system is what I termed as eudaimonic satisfactionism. Okay, that's like the kind of fancy name for it,
Yeah.
but the basic broad idea is just that morality is going to consist in the satisfaction of eudaimonia, right? Or in other words, what it means to be moral is that you either um, are on path to achieving happiness or that you have achieved happiness. That's like your fullest moral That's like you in your fullest moral sense, right?
Yeah.
That's just what it means to be exercising goodness, is that you're actually behaving in ways that's consistent with achieving your final goal, your final end, which is to be happy, to live in a state of happiness.
Yeah, this is where I'd get like really confused though. So like you would say for something to be moral would be something that's like satisfying like eudaimonia, like happiness for yourself. But then how would you explain like someone who is getting happiness from I don't know, like going around murdering someone? Is this like going to be described in like metaethics or like how would you how do you
Um,
explain it?
it's gonna be it's gonna be one, it's gonna be a psychological analysis, right? So you have to actually like analyze the psychology of the person.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in that case, obviously, on my view, in that case, it would just trivially be the case that they're just wrong about their beliefs. So if
Mm-hmm.
somebody like believes that murdering people is what is like, actually the thing that puts them in a state of and let me just be clear about my language here.
Mm-hmm.
Notice how I'm making a distinction between being happy and living in a state of happiness. Like those are two
Okay.
different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So somebody who murders people for fun might be happy in the sense where the action satisfies a desire that they have.
Yeah.
And in that sense, they're happy. But they're not objectively living in a state of happiness in the sense where they're acting according to what their nature demands of them. Right.
But
So,
yeah, so like how would you put where would you be getting like certain actions and putting them into the category of living in a state of happiness? That's where I'd kind of get confused. Like, what would be the justification that like murder's not in there? If that makes sense.
oh, that's a good question. So, those things are going to be determined by what's called the norms of reason.
Okay.
So there the rules are governed by like reason itself, right? Like just rationality. And rationality is going to be inseparably linked to the kinds of beings that we are, right? So like our nature kind of binds us to be rational, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as such, the rules of reason are going to govern our justification, our justificatory practices, our epistemic practices, our moral practices.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things are under the umbrella or basically under the camp of the rules of reason, right? And so considering that fact, the rules of reason are not such that murdering people for fun is good. When you actually analyze moral concepts and moral facts and what they are, once you come to discover what they are, you will find that the moral facts are in disalignment with that specific agent's beliefs or their desires. So that's kind of like how we get to the idea that that would not be in the camp where they're in a state of happiness. Rather, it's in a camp where they are being happy, but it's a defective sense of happiness. It's a defective desire that they have that's leading them to this false belief that they're doing something that's making them happy. But even like putting all the philosophy aside,
Mm-hmm.
you can literally observe this, right? Like just look at any documentary where they're, interviewing like a serial killer after they've caught them and kind of exposed all of their shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
What you'll often find is that a lot of them kind of have this deep sense of sorrow and sadness after they've done all that they've done. So
Mm-hmm.
they might have been happy like in the moment, but even like just, just bare bones, like raw experience, when you see these people, you
Mm-hmm.
can literally observe that it looks like they have no soul. It looks like they're just like dead inside and
Yeah.
they're just like in this perpetual state of like sadness and grief and sorrow. And maybe some people just don't show it, right? Like you have like these cases where these serial killers are kind of like indifferent about the moral facts. Like they don't care if it's bad or good. They just do it because that's what they want.
Yeah.
And even if like they're caught, they won't like show any remorse or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think those people are like deeply psychologically what's the word that I'm looking for? Like distraught,
Yeah.
right? And I think the fact that we have mental facilities to attempt to help these people is evidence for the fact that we believe that there's something wrong with them. They have a mistaken belief. There's something wrong about their psychology. There's something wrong about the way that they operate and they look at the world.
Yeah.
That I mean, that's why we have these kind of programs and facilities to help them. Otherwise, if they weren't doing anything wrong, why would we spend our time creating all these facilities
No,
to
on it.
quote unquote help them, right?
Honestly, like I questioned that for so long. Like I was struggling so bad with like, what makes the murderer like wrong just because I think is wrong, like kind of thing like that. And then like, why do we have these like mental facilities to like try and make them better? Like, who are we to say like we are the mentally fine ones, if that makes sense? But like the thing is, like I found like natural law theory is the best like explanation for me. But like when you said the rules of reason, when you kind of went over your normative view, wouldn't this just simultaneously agree with like natural law theory, kind of like in the ways that like it would defeat like our natural purpose in life, and you can just like humans obviously like seek truth, and we can like rationalize stuff like this.
Yeah, I think I mean, yeah, what I've said is entirely and completely compatible with natural law theory. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. In fact, I actually agree with natural law theory. I am in some respects a natural law theorist myself.
Okay.
So absolutely, yeah, I think it's entirely compatible with natural law theory.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, I did because obviously I only picked up like natural law theory like like a week ago, I'd say, because I think it like best describes some like I can't even word it, but like I think the reference that like Aquinas gave was like when we look within nature, we see things trying to like fulfill their purpose. So like a tree is like gonna like blossom, and we say like a knife is bad if it doesn't like fulfill its purpose and doesn't like cut well and stuff like that. I just see it as a like the perfect explanation for like human right and wrongness.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the primary function of a human being seemingly is like to be able to engage in reason,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to reason. That's like it's like a fundamental feature about human beings is that we have an ability to reason. So when somebody is doing something that is out of accord with that, we usually think that there's something wrong happening there. But of course, there's a debate about whether or not the wrongness stuff there is like a moral sense of wrong, or if it's like a descriptive sense of wrong,
Mm.
or it like kind of like opens up this can of like this can of worms into like this other part of the conversation. But yeah, I mean, I think I broadly agree with you that uh, natural law theory can very well explain the morality of human action.
Yeah. Okay. What would be the meta ethical view? I think some you're like on the synthetical descriptivist, right? Is that right?
Yep. Yep. So
Okay.
I'm a so my meta ethics, this is the part where it's actually going to get a little bit slightly complicated because
Yeah.
I have I have there's like a bunch of commitments because my meta ethics is deeply tied to my metaphysics.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, so when I say I'm a synthetic descriptivist, what does that mean? So synthetic descriptivism is basically a view where moral facts are going to have a what's called synthetic identity relation to natural facts. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, that kind of view is contrasted with what's called analytic naturalism or
Yes.
analytic descriptivism, which is the view that there's an analytic identity relation that's going to obtain between moral facts and natural facts, right? Now, what does that mean? So, usually, when people say something is natural, I mean, the general definition of that, I think, is just that it's something that is explained by our best scientific theories,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, an example of a natural fact would be gravity, right? Or like the
Mm-hmm.
laws of nature or something like that. Those things are relevant predictions about our scientific theories, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And then a non natural fact is going to be a fact um, that isn't explained by our best scientific theories. It's not even able to be captured by our best, excuse me, by our best
Sure.
scientific theories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rather, it's going to be some kind of irreducible, irreducibly like normative favoring relation is what they're gonna say, right?
Okay.
So I think that moral facts are natural. So I think there's something that exists in the world that we live in, the natural world that we live in. But I don't think that it's gonna be reducible to anything natural. Does that make sense?
Um, when you say like reducible to anything natural, what does that mean?
Yeah, I can explain. So when I say it's reducible to something natural, I'm saying that it's something that's going to be able to be explained fully in terms of natural facts. Okay, so here's kind of like an I'll give you like an intuition pump to kind of like push the idea that I'm like putting forth here.
Hmm.
So, for example, I think the fact like so I think rape is wrong, for example, right?
Yeah.
And I think the fact that rape is wrong, right? The wrongness of rape is something that is found in the domain of the natural world. So I
Okay.
think the wrongness property is in the actual world, the world that we live in. But I don't think that the wrongness is going to be explained by anything natural. So, like, it can be explained by human psychology, it can be explained by human desires, it can be explained by human convention, it can be explained by cultural agreements, right?
Hmm.
Like none of those things are going to be able to capture really fully the wrongness of rape.
Okay.
But the wrongness of rape still exists in the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so would you just say like the wrongness of rape in the real world is kind of just unexplainable then? Or
Well, what I would say is it's not analyzable in terms of natural stuff, right?
okay.
So when I say natural stuff, that's just the examples that I gave previously, like
Yeah.
human psychology would be a natural thing. Yeah, that the list that I went down previously.
Okay, that's like kind of confusing. Because like
I
if you
know.
can't find the wrongness in something natural, then like where are you gonna find it?
Well,
That's what you really.
that's the thing is that it's not something that. So here's what I think about that is that we actually directly perceive them, right? So, for example, we'll just stick to the rape example
Yeah.
because that's what we've been talking about this whole time.
Hmm.
So, for example, if you were to see somebody getting raped on the street, for example, right?
Hmm.
Um, there would be something that would cause you to either believe that something wrong is happening or at least to have the inclination that something wrong is happening, at least if you're a normal human being.
Yeah.
Of course, there's like these kind of deranged sadists out there who exist, and maybe they don't think there's something that's like prompting their psyche that something is wrong. In which case, I think they just have like a defective psychology and
Hmm.
then straight to the mental institute. But for normal, regular human beings who have like a moral compass,
Hmm.
you're gonna like there's something that's gonna incline you almost instantaneously that something wrong is happening. It's not even something that you have to reflect about. Like if you see somebody being raped, you don't have to sit down and think, let me
Yeah.
think, is this right or is this wrong? Like it's like immediately apparent to you that something wrong is happening, right? So I think what's happening there is you are literally standing directly in relation to the wrongness about the action that's happening. That's why it's immediately presented to you when you see it.
So you wouldn't say
Does that make
that's
sense?
like yeah, it would, but like so you wouldn't say it's like show through anything natural like psychology there, like that I'm saying it's wrong, for example. Like when I see it. That's like
No, so
Mhm.
yeah, so in that case, I wouldn't say that your psychology is explaining the fact that it's wrong, but I think your perception allows you to see the wrongness that's happening,
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I get it.
right? But
Yes.
you're not going to be able to explain the wrongness in terms of the psychology of the agent because if we just change the facts about the psychology, that wouldn't change the fact that it's wrong, right?
Mm. Okay, so when we try to explain like what we mean by right and wrong, this is what you would like say.
Yep, yep. So that's what I would say the nature of wrong. So, I mean, this is the other part of my view. So you
Hmm.
might have heard me talk about this. It's I'm an HPC theorist,
I've actually
right?
never heard you say that.
Um, well, you might have heard me say homeostatic property cluster. That's what that
Yes,
means.
yes, I have heard you say that before.
Yeah. So basically, what is that? What is the HPC view? HPC theorists will the idea is that they want to say that so goodness, whatever goodness is not going to be something that we can identify with any single fact in the world, like anything like any single thing in the world, right?
Okay.
Rather, goodness is going to be something that we can find across multiple instances of different kinds of actions and behaviors and events in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, in one context, I might say it's wrong that uh, maybe let's just say like, I don't know, it's wrong that your heart isn't beating, right? I
Mm-hmm.
might say that.
Yeah.
But in another context, I might say, um, it was wrong of you to not show up to my football game today, right?
Yeah.
And in another context, I might say, it was wrong of you to make that move when you were playing chess.
Mm-hmm.
In another context, I might say, it was wrong that you walked by that homeless man and didn't give him your extra food, right? Now, notice how across all these instances, I'm using the same term, good, or excuse me, wrong,
Yeah.
sorry, right? I'm using the same term in every instance, but the term wrong picks out something different
Yes.
in every instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the HBC theorist is basically attempting to explain why that's the case. Why is it the case that the property of wrongness remains in every instance, but yet it picks out something different in every instance, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of the idea is that it's going to be so then the thing that explains it is that well it seems like then there's just a cluster of facts, so there's like this cluster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you have like all these kind of different types of facts that like coexist in the cluster, and that there's something that's causally maintaining the cluster across the domain of objects, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Does that make
Like,
sense?
and like that will just be explained through like what you said before that, like synthetic descriptivism. Like those two
Yeah.
can kind of like go hand in hand, right? Like work together.
Yes, so my version of synthetic descriptivism and my HPC stuff, they do go hand in hand because the goodness property is basically it's not so the HPC stuff is doing work in the sense where the goodness property is a cluster of natural facts,
Mm-hmm.
but the identity relation between the natural facts and the moral facts is synthetic. It's not analytic.
When it does analytic just mean like it? I always took the analytic descriptivism as like it's in the like definition. Like so, for example, if I said like the word wrong would literally just have like it's not causing like happiness or something like that in the definition of it. But then
Yep, that's exactly the view.
and then synthetic is just like it showed within reality like what's wrong and what's right, not in the
Yep.
definition.
Yep, exactly. Right. So I mean, yeah, you got it right on the nail on the head.
Okay.
The analytic synthetic distinction is it's basically like for something to be an analytic fact is that the fact is something that's it's a fact that obtains just in virtue of the meaning of the concepts alone, right?
But like,
And then
how would that even be possible in analytical descriptivism? Like, how would someone like follow that view? I don't understand. Where would they be getting that wrong just means that it's not causing happiness, for example? How would they get into that without looking in reality?
um give me 1 second, okay?
Okay.
I have to do something quick.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My bad. Somebody walked in and came and talked to me.
That's all good.
So repeat your question. I didn't hear your
Yeah,
question.
I just wouldn't understand how analytical descriptivism would be like true because how are you saying that in the definition of wrong is like something not causing happiness without even seeing that in reality. Like, how would that even make any sense?
Um, okay, so you're okay, that's an interesting question. So I think the way that analytic naturalists or analytic descriptivists, whatever you want to call them,
Mm-hmm.
I think the way that they usually want to motivate the view is that um like given the fact that well, okay, so firstly let's kind of trace a couple steps back.
Mm-hmm.
There's this idea in philosophy, it's known as the open question argument.
Ah, yeah.
Are you familiar?
I think. Wait, is this when you just? Wait, this is within analytical descriptivism, right? It's
Yes.
when
It's
like
a
it's
it's
like
a it's a meta-ethical inquiry, yeah.
I think it's the I could be wrong, but if you're saying like wrongness is like just murder in the concept, and then you ask like is murder wrong, then that wouldn't work because you're just saying like is murder, right? Like
Yes. Yeah, roughly. It's just the idea that if somebody were to define goodness in terms of a natural property, so if somebody were to say goodness just is flourishing or goodness just
Hmm.
is, I don't know, desire satisfaction or whatever,
Yeah.
that there's still a question, which is why is it the case that desire satisfaction is good? So then the question isn't actually answered about like what exactly goodness is the whole idea, right? Which is why it's like an open-end question. It's an open question. So the reason why I bring this up is because this is kind of a challenge that's posed against analytic descriptivists. But firstly, it's just not going to be an open question for them because there's no further fact about the fact that goodness just is like let's say like valences or desire
Mm.
satisfaction.
Yeah.
It's like for them it would be like you asking, okay, so I get that a bachelor is an unmarried man,
Hmm.
but what's going to explain why is an unmarried man a bachelor? To them they would just say because that's just what it means
Yeah.
to be a bachelor. It's just that you're an unmarried man. So for them, there's no open question. The same way when you say, okay, well, why is flourishing good? They would just say that's just what goodness means, is that it's flourishing, right? But primarily the motivations, like the arguments that people typically want to give for analytic descriptivism,
Hmm.
is just an inference from cognitivism. So firstly, it's a rejection of like emotivism,
Hmm.
kind of like the non-cognitivist picture that we were talking about previously.
Yeah.
They want to say that like moral discourse, moral disputes, those things are not um, like kind of like trivial disagreements, like disagreeing about your favorite flavor of ice cream.
Yeah.
Rather, they're like actually meaningful, substantive disagreements
Yeah.
with like truth descriptions, and they can actually be true or false, right?
Yeah. Expressing thought
And if
proposition.
that's the case, right, then that's basically what they use to basically support the idea that um, moral sentences or moral properties are going to be analytically identical to natural properties because of the fact that moral disputes are substantive about like true descriptions, right?
Okay, the last bit kind of went
So
over
that's
my
the
head,
idea.
but yeah, but like it's just so
Say
confusing
it.
because
What'd you say?
it surely if like an analytical descriptivist has to witness something. Wait, no, I guess they wouldn't have to witness something to think it's wrong, but I don't know. It's really confusing to me how you wouldn't see something in reality and then link it to wrongness, and you're just like linking it to wrongness straight away. If that makes sense. Maybe I'm
Yeah, well,
confused
they
between the
think.
two, but
Well, the thing, so I get what you're trying to say. So what you're trying to say is, why wouldn't it be the case that like how are you gonna know that something is wrong unless you like go out there and
yeah,
kind of observe the fact that something wrong is happening? But for them, what they would say to you is, well, you're just question begging because you're assuming that the wrongness is going to be determined by the fact that I go out there in the world and observe it. Because for them, you got to remember it's like an analytic identity. So you can just know what goodness means just from analyzing the concept alone. In the same way that you can just know, and this is called like a priori knowledge, right? So you just kind of like have these a priori access to the truth, like these kind of like moral concepts, just simply through analyzing like the concepts alone. So basically, they think that the meaning, right? When we say previously that there's like a meaningful dispute, they think the meaning of those moral terms is going to be analyzable, right? So we can actually like refer to just those descriptive facts, right? Like facts about desire satisfaction or whatever the facts may be.
hmm
That like once you actually analyze those concepts, you will discover that those concepts are basically embedded with moral facts, right? Um, and by the way, just to be clear, I'm not endorsing an analytic descriptivist view. I'm just telling you this is how they could respond against some of
yeah,
your worries, basically, about the view.
yeah. Okay, yeah, I understand. All right, so wait, I think I had one more question. Oh wait, no, I actually wanted to ask you this because I think I heard you talking about this at some point. When you argue that like moral claims are true, like as a cognitivist yourself, do you mean that they're true in like a metaphysical sense, like it's a real property of reality, or do you think like saying something is true just repeats the statement? Like so for me saying like snow is white and then like saying snow is white is true, do you think they mean like the exact same thing, or do you think like true there gives some like metaphysical like something metaphysical in reality?
No, so I don't accept a metaphysical thesis about truth. I would agree with the former. So I'm more like a deflationist about the truth predicate.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, the proposition snow is white would just be identical to the proposition snow is white is true
Yes.
in
Okay.
the sense where both propositions are intending to express the same thing, basically. So yeah, I take on a very deflationary view of truth.
How would it work? Is that like do you ever use true then, or like I don't know how that works. Do you use the
Well,
word true?
how does it work in
Yeah,
what
like
context?
so like when you say like some type of proposition, do you add the word like true on the end, or like or do you
Oh,
never
like you're
do
saying,
that?
like, how does it work? Right. You're asking me, like, how is this theory going to translate into like our practical
Yes,
situations?
yes, yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the truth predicate is something that's multiply realizable.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is that truth can be realized in different ways with respect to different domains, right?
Okay.
So, I think, for example, when we say in the scientific domain, when we say X scientific proposition is true, I think what that means is that it's true insofar as it corresponds with the natural facts, right? Because science is a field of inquiry that investigates the natural facts. So, in
Yes.
that domain, in that specific domain, the thing that's going to make those sentences true is going to be indexed to the axioms in that domain,
Mm-hmm.
which in that case would be just the set of natural laws or the set of natural facts, right? Um, and say, for example, in the mathematical context, when we say like a mathematical proposition is true,
Yep.
that's going to be with respect to like its concordance with certain mathematical axioms, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
mathematical axioms are going to determine the truth conditions of mathematical sentences. And in the aesthetic domain, I think those things are subjectively true. I think they're mind dependently true. So I think they're going to be made true in virtue of an agent's like stances, whether it be their desires, attitudes, or feelings about it.
Wait,
I think
is
that's fine in that case.
are you explaining what was it called? Alethic domain pluralism. Is that what this is, or no? Or is
Sort
that
of.
different?
Yeah. I mean, no, it's not too different. So alethic domain pluralism is just a kind of view where reality is kind of divided into these different domains.
Yeah.
And there's going to be like true sentences that we can say about these domains. So, yeah, I mean, it is kind of like that. So, I think when you're asking how does this apply in like a practical context, I think that's what we do is that whatever it is that determines the truth about something is going to be one, the what kind of sentence it is, and two, what kind of domain is the sentence like operating in? Is the sentence
Yeah.
like a mathematical one? Is it a moral one? Is it a
S-
scientific one?
So would
And
I
then,
yeah, so
yeah.
would I be wrong to think like so in a mathematical way or scientific way we you would use like true and that would like or wait, or is it the same without like all domains for you? Would it be like there's no metaphysical like
Oh, like
how
you're asked.
would it be the same across all domains, or is it different? Is that the view, or like
Well, so when you say would it be the same, are you saying would the truth predicate be the
yes, the
same
truth
or what?
predicate, yes. Would it be the same within all domains under your view, or will it be different under each specific domain?
That depends. So if by the same you mean that it's the same kind of deflationary property in each case, I believe the answer is yes.
Okay.
But I think what like the whatever like the truth conditions, like whatever makes the propositions true, I think those things are going to be different, right? So like whatever makes mathematical sentences true is going to be something different than what makes like moral sentences true, right?
Yes.
Like you're not going to be able to get a moral sentence being true by deriving rules in a mathematical system, but
Yeah.
that doesn't even make sense,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Okay, no, I understand because yeah, I understand why you're getting confused now because there's like two different ways it can go. Um, I think I had one more question. Wait, where is it?
Sure.
What do you... Oh yeah, what do you think about like people who ground their morality in God, and do you think it has any problems? But obviously you're religious, but you don't necessarily like ground your morals in God, do you?
Um, Depends on what you mean by ground.
Kind of just I guess I was gonna
Like
say
a
like
are you
follow.
saying
I was
like
gonna follow like divine command theory, but like you don't necessarily have to follow it to like still be in line with like the objective principles. But I
sure.
don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, so the reason why I'm asking is because there's like different interpretations of grounding is kind of like one of those dubious terms in
Yeah.
philosophy. Um, I mean, the way I understand it, when somebody's asking me about a grounding, is that they're asking for like some kind of metaphysical explanation.
Mm.
So I'm like some kind of like fundamental explanation for why something is the case, right? As opposed to
Okay.
something being it being something else.
Okay.
So if by that, if that's what you mean by grounding, then I think ultimately, I mean everything's going to be grounded in God ultimately, because
Yeah.
it's my belief that God is the sustainer of being, right? So he's like, God has causal governance over all of the metaphysical facts, and all of the metaphysical facts are related to all the logical facts, and all the logical facts are related to all the natural facts. So
Mm.
there's going to be like this kind of like relationship that everything has to itself, right? It's kind of like this web of information that we live in, right?
Yeah.
But um, so that's what I mean there. But if so, your question is, what if somebody grounds their morality in God? I
Like.
don't think that's
Yeah.
necessarily problematic.
Hmm.
Oh, sorry. Do you do you
No,
have a
no. Yeah, I
question
think you
or?
were gonna answer it perfectly. Like, let's just say they were following like divine command theory. I think you were gonna answer it that way,
Oh,
anyways. So.
yes. So with divine command theory specifically, I know there's some responses that philosophers have given against the Euthyphro.
Yes,
Um, I'm
Euthyrodyne,
familiar with I'm familiar with like Aquinas's response and a couple of other philosophers and how they've kind of responded to the issue.
yeah.
I have to say, I'm not exactly super convinced by any one response. I think each response has like its own separate issues.
Yeah.
But I do think that the Euthyphro poses at least a risk to divine command theory as like a
Yeah.
plausible theory. Um, yeah, it's like a valid concern, right? It's like actually,
Yeah.
it's, it's I think it's something that's like worth considering for the if you're a divine command theorist, like okay, this is something that I actually need to basically kind of reconcile under my view. Otherwise, it renders the view implausible, right?
Yes.
So that's my general thoughts about divine command theory. I'm personally just not kind of I don't have an affinity to those views.
Hmm.
I'm more kind of like and I mean, divine command theory kind of strikes me as like I don't want to. It's kind of like the presup of apologetics. Like that's kind of like how I view divine command. It's not a presuppositional view. I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that it kind of reminds me of presuppositional apologetics in the way that they argue for the theory.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I generally just kind of like more evidentialist approaches. That's just kind of like a preference of mine.
Yeah, that's fair enough. What would your opinions, just quickly to end it off, on Aristotle's like virtue ethics? What would be your opinions on that?
Um, I think so. I love Aristotle's work on virtue ethics.
Mm.
Um, I think I think he probably got it correct. I think morality definitely has something to do with virtues.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if it's like, I mean, of course, I have some issues with virtue ethics. Um,
Hmm.
but I mean, broadly speaking, I think virtue ethics is a pretty good theory. I know there's like people that want to say certain things about virtue ethics, like, oh, well, virtue ethics can't answer the trolley problem. And then the virtue ethicists are
Yeah.
like, well, why should we care about the trolley problem? Because that the trolley problem is a problem, and here's why. So there's like, I don't know, there's like this ongoing debate about like, that kind of like blossomed into this inquiry about like what a moral theory should do. And
Yeah.
if it's the case that like virtue ethics is even meeting those conditions. But I mean, yeah, so I'm aware of all of those things, but I mean, I think all those things can be easily it kind of like largely strikes me as like kind of like a semantic dispute, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like a substantive dispute really fully.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's generally my thoughts. I think
Yeah.
Aristotle, of course, the goat himself got it correct. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be real, right? I mean, Aristotle is the father of philosophy,
He
so
is.
no getting around that.
Would you have a problem with all like subjective or relativist theories then, or like, yeah? Is there a
Not
problem
all
with
of
all
them.
of them? No.
Not all of them, because I am a subjectivist about beauty, right? Like I think
Okay.
beauty is purely subjective.
Yeah.
But I think there are some serious issues with subjectivism in some domains. Like if you're a subjectivist about math, I think
Hmm.
that's very silly. If you're a subjectivist about
What about
like
morality?
morality, oh yeah, I think that's probably one of the most silliest,
Yeah.
if that's even a word, like one of the sillier views
Hmm.
for just the nature of morality. I mean, I think subjectivists are just confused about what morality like genuinely is. Like I genuinely think they
I'm
have it wrong.
so
So
glad you're saying this.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Because I feel like so many people like try follow like subjective theories on morality, and I just don't like. I just can't like. I don't understand how that would like posit some like plausible explanation on morality. Like it just doesn't make sense for me. I need to find something like objective, which I
Yeah, I mean,
cannot find. So, but
not to mention, I mean, the semantic thesis of subjectivism is just complete gibberish, right? I mean, well, what do you even mean morality is going to be determined by my preferences? Okay, well, why should I care about your preferences?
yeah.
Oh, you shouldn't care about my preferences. I'm just telling you that I have these preferences. It's like, okay, well, who cares? Do you have these preferences? Like, how is that gonna how is that authoritative at all? And they're
This
like, oh
is
well, maybe you might have the same preferences that I do, so maybe we can talk it out. It's like, well,
this is
I don't
like
think that's what morality is
this
at
is like
all, right?
every like random TikTok debater like that comes up on your panels like on abortion.
Yes,
They all
yes,
love subjective. They all
yes.
absolutely love it. It's so
Well,
funny.
the thing is, with the rise of postmodernism as a school of thought,
Mm.
um, because objectivism actually used to be like the popular view. I mean, it still is like moral real. Most philosophers are moral realists.
Yeah.
But moral objectivism used to be way more popular just amongst like just non-philosophy speaking people, like just regular, normal, everyday people.
Wow.
And then it wasn't until like after postmodernism that there was like this radical shift, and everybody started kind of adopting this very subjective, individualistic perspective about the world. And it kind of shifted from like, okay, well, there is a fact about the matter to, well, I get to determine the facts about the matter, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's been like largely pushed a lot in like our media, all the way
Yeah.
from like our children's media, all the way up to like even the big leagues, like even in certain like philosophical circles, those things are being pushed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they have it wrong. Like genuinely, I think subjectivists
Yeah.
just
I
have
agree.
the picture about morality incorrect.
I
They
think
couldn't have it more incorrect.
yeah, like I think most people genuinely just get confused with like factual disagreement as well, right? Like I feel like whenever like people say they agree with like subjective morality, all they're pointing out is some like type of factual disagreement within like moral frameworks, and they think that that's just like the end view that morality is just subjective.
Hmm.
But like obviously, for like someone like a moral realist or like a objectivist will just won't see it that way. Um,
Yes.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
I think it's just like it's just gonna be like ignorance though. To be honest, like you said, it's just gonna be just lack of knowledge on the topic. So,
I agree. I agree.
but yeah, it's been a long episode. Um, thank you
I'm
for
sorry.
no
I talk a
no
lot. I know.
no. It's been amazing. But I definitely need to get some sleep now, especially after that. Jesus.
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for having me.